As soon as I placed my pre-order for the Titanic Creations Yongary, I went and designed this drink. And now that the set is here, it's time to unveil the Laser Horn Cocktail. Small, citrusy, with a sweet little kick of ginger, and about as potent as a pint of cheap beer. For this one, you'll need soju, and I know people love the flavored ones, but for this, you only need the original soju, a ginger liqueur, and for this, I definitely recommend something a little better than the cheap stuff, and lemon juice. It's that simple. In a shaker, combine 2 ounces of that soju, an ounce and a half of that ginger liqueur, and an ounce of lemon juice. Add some ice and give that a quick shake. Then pour it over fresh ice in a tall glass. Add a straw and enjoy. Cheers. Titanic Creations keeps rolling out the hits, or at least hit figures of some underappreciated kaiju like Gorgo, Pulgazari, and now Yongary. Going up for pre-order in April of 2024, they ended up selling somewhere around 1,000 units, which is incredible, especially knowing that it's basically a one-man show getting these all shipped out starting in December of 2024. You're a legend, Mac. Oh, and if you're looking at the packaging here and going, hey, how come yours is so shiny and clear and mine isn't, there is a protective film on the package that should peel right off. Featuring some massive Matt Frank art in his unmistakable style and weighing in at almost 4 pounds, this is their biggest box yet, which makes sense because it is jam-packed with accessories. Like their other figures, they used a crowdfunding model for Yongary, and the more orders that were placed, the more accessories got unlocked. The base price for this guy was $100, and that price did not move an inch even as the accessories were added. And you might be going, how is that even possible? But that's the magic of bulk ordering. Typically, the more you buy in bulk, the bigger the discount per item. Like when I was ordering my Thirsty Thursday Toys coasters, it was actually cheaper for me to buy 500 of them than to buy 450. Even though I was getting more, the price per coaster had dropped. Same thing with Yongary here. The more that got ordered, the more the production price would drop, which would then be balanced back out with the addition of an accessory. Which I think is a genius model. It's the same model that we see in many Kickstarter projects, and the same model that Mattel Creations used for their Jurassic Gates project. But where Mattel asked too much for too little and ultimately failed, Titanic Creations succeeded. So of course we gotta start with the base figure of Yongary himself. The Yongary suit was simultaneously so generic, sticking Stegosaurus plates on a generic theropod was a classic workaround for companies wanting to cash in on the Godzilla vibe, yet unmistakable, and long overdue for an official figure like this. Standing as tall as 6 3/4 of an inch depending on how you have him posed, and sculpted by Dope Pope, this guy appears to be a pretty faithful rendition of the creature we saw on screen, with some modern detailing, and of course, articulation. 26 points of articulation, according to the website. The lower jaw can open and close, revealing my favorite part, and we'll get to that in a bit. There's a double ball joint at the base of the head, so he can look a little up and down, some of this side to side, and some twisting, but not a full 360. Another double ball joint at the base of the neck gives it a little bit more range. And yet another double ball joint gives it some extra twisting here at the torso. Both shoulders have a hinge and swivel with a pretty nice range there. A nice range with the hinge and swivel at both elbows. And same deal with the wrists, but here you can rotate the joint itself for some extra precision. A ball joint at both hips allows for a little wiggle room and a full but tight 360. Hinge and swivel at both knees, and the left knee on mine is a little tighter than the right. And the ankles have the same joint system as the wrists. Now I noticed that the joints on mine are painted to match the rest of the figure, and the paint is scraping off from the movement. However, the joints are cast in a dark enough color and hidden enough that it doesn't bother me. And finally, the rest of them are all double ball joints right here in the tail. Now, the joints at the end of the tail on mine are quite loose, which is unfortunate, but not the end of the world. And you know what? Let's talk about articulated tails as a whole. Growing up, I think it's safe to assume that many of us, at least in my generation, had the 6-inch Bondis and Kenner Jurassics with straight, solid tails. This made them hard to display because most of the time, at least with mine, the figures were longer than the shelves were deep. I used to pop the tails off just to fit them on the shelf. So when we have tails like Monster Arts, I love it. I know many people do awesome figure photography with these, or set their displays up with some dynamic poses, but I'm just happy to be able to curl a tail up to fit it on the shelf. It seems to me like these are designed as more or less straight out tails with enough cuts for the joints to allow for bends like this. For this Yongary figure, and for their Gorgo as well, it seems to me like the figure was designed with a posed tail first, with joint cuts to be able to straighten it out. So even though the joints at the end here are loose, they fall into its natural state. This base pose is the pose that I would have it in the first place. The joints aren't tight enough to hold a straight tail pose, but that's not how I want to display it anyway. And I can still curl it to fit on the shelf, and I am happy with that. If the joints are loose on your copy, and that's something that bugs you, you can always do the nail polish trick. Now, some people hate the look of joint cuts, and that's where bendy wire tails come in handy, although there's usually no wire in the last couple of inches. Then finally, you have whatever Super 7 was trying to do here. So many joints that are so useless. As far as Yongary goes, the detailing and paint is once again great. I love the crackly skin and the folds and bulges that make it really look like a suit. I also love how the underbelly paint goes all the way down from the neck to the tip of the tail. The eyes are brown on the figure instead of glowing red. I think a swappable head with different eyes could have worked as another accessory, or maybe even a future repaint of the guy. Either way, I'm really happy with the other accessories that we did get. Now my favorite part about this guy is that it has the flamethrower in the mouth. I'm not sure if they tried to hide it in the film and failed miserably, or if they just said screw it and let it be what it was going to be, but Dope Pope captured it perfectly here. Which leads us to the first accessory, unlocked at 250 orders, the Flame Breath. Small translucent fire that plugs right into the mouth spout. Whether you're displaying it breathing fire on its enemies, or sucking the fire right back up out of an oil barrel, or using it for your Revoltech Gamera, this is the accessory for you. Or perhaps you prefer the Laser Horn, which was unlocked at 300 orders. That's right, the ability that came out of absolutely nowhere and was used like maybe twice in the film. We got it! The regular horn pops right off and the laser horn pops right on, and it stays in quite nicely. It's a nice soft material that is definitely not going to snap in two. But because of this, it may be a little curvy. A little heat or simply bending it can get it straightened right out. Obviously, a stiffer material would keep it perfectly straight. But I've said on this channel many times that I prefer a softer material that's less likely to snap if it falls off the shelf, even if that means a little drooping here and there. And I stand by it. The next accessory is also cast in softer material, so I'm not worried about snapping off any wheels or blades. At 350 orders, we got the helicopter. Not a helicopter, the helicopter. I mean, the one in the film is more of an olive green color, but the shape of the helicopter accessory definitely matches the Sikorsky H-19 from the film. There's also a street base with 4 holes where you can plug in bendy wires to display the flying vehicles. The wires have a black rubber coating and plug right into the hole in the bottom of the helicopter. These wires are also compatible with the street base that came in the Pulgazari sets. The Yongary street, however, is thicker, allowing the wires to plug in deeper for extra stability. It's these little improvements with each set that really make Titanic Creations stand out to me. Going back to the color of the helicopter, the accessory is a perfect color match for the jet plane accessories, but first we need to take a look at the tanks, which unlocked at 400 orders. Ironically, a better color match for the helicopter, you get 3 tanks. I don't know what type of tanks these are, I can only research so many military vehicles, but feel free to let me know in the comments. What I do know is that they're about 1.25 inches long and they're articulated. It might take some effort at first, but the turrets do rotate a full 360, and can even pop off if you want to display them with extra battle damage. This means you also don't have to worry about snapping the barrels off when you rotate the turrets. Also, a nice little touch painting that tiny star on the sides of the tanks. The film states that not even tanks can put a dent in Yongary, and the same goes for the tank accessories, because they're cast in that same softer material. Like I said, the jets, which were unlocked at 500 orders, have the same paint as the helicopter. That base gray, with red on the wingtips and a light gray cockpit. Again, they match the on-screen jets well, and again, I don't know what kind they are. The set comes with 4 wires, so you can display all 3 jets and the helicopter together if you so choose. At 1.25 inches long, these 3 jets have the same hole in the bottom that allows them to be plugged into the street base. The wires are around 8.25 inches long, allowing the jets to fly above Yongary's head. If you want them even higher, you could use the clear-coated wires that come in some toy packaging, but these aren't as thick as the Titanic Creations one and would be a little loose in the base. Next up, unlocked at 550 orders, we have 3 oil storage tanks, and each tank comes with a removable top. Around 3 inches tall with a diameter of almost 3.5 inches, they do take up the most space in the package. I mean, that's well deserved because the oil is a prominent plot point. I had considered doing an oil cocktail, perhaps a take on a corn in oil and serving it in one of these tankers, but I don't know how food safe the paint is. Although yes, I did measure and they have a 10-ounce capacity. Instead of filling them with drinks, they make a perfect storage container for all the accessories, at least for the vehicles and alternate horn and flame breath. The final 2 accessories are definitely too big to fit. Unlocked at 600 orders is the Sungyumun Gate, and I really hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, please let me know. At 5 inches deep and almost 6.5 inches wide, this piece is really cool. There's no battle damage, which makes sense because it remained intact in the film, but it's a sweet rendition of a piece of Korean history. Going from Big Ben to the Pulgazari skyscrapers to this, I feel like we're only a couple of Titanic Creations sets away from a full-on cityscape. Because we also have the bridge. This final add-on, unlocked at 650 orders, comes in 5 parts. This destructible version of the Han River footbridge features 2 main bridge parts with 3 stone arches to hold them up. The bridge is 3.5 inches tall at the top of each arch, and just about 8 inches long when both halves are put together. The ends of the bridge halves are flat, but they're curved in the middle where the 2 halves meet. And yes, the opening of the bridge is tall enough to fit the tanks through. What a truly massive set in every sense of the word. Now, I collect what I like, and I review what I like, and I know there are a lot of opinions out there when it comes to articulated kaiju, and especially the companies that make them, so, in the interest of objectivity, I realize I'm a huge fan of Titanic Creations, and you might say I'm overlooking some things because of that. Because yes, things like the loose tail tip joints or the wrong colored helicopter might bug me a little bit more in a monster art set. But that would be because we're looking at a toy line that had been producing articulated figures for almost 15 years, it would definitely cost more than $100, and the helicopter would be the only accessory. We have options when it comes to companies producing articulated kaiju. Bandai's Monster Arts, Super 7's Ultimates, Haya's Exquisite Basic, Titanic Creations, even some 3D printing folks like Rixon Customs and Photon Collectibles. Obviously, they're not all making the same kaiju, but Titanic Creations to me is the best of all worlds for my personal collecting needs, and I really hope they're the ones to end up with other properties like, I don't know, Reptilicus. And I'm not trying to imply that the other companies are bad. I mean, we all have our preferences, and I do have something from everybody. The 3D printed figures use resin that is too fragile for my liking, but I still have the Rixon Foghorn Monster and 94 and Storyboard. Haya listens to fan feedback, but has a lot of kinks to work out, like getting their articulation up to par, having their paint match what's advertised, but the prices are good, and I have their Skullcrawler. I definitely have the most monster arts, but you have the paint not being as professional as the promo photos, and oof, those prices. Super 7 Ultimates gave me a dream figure in their Rose Biollante, but they have a long way to go with making their articulation make sense. Like, enough with the swappable heads, just do articulated jaws. But hey, support the companies you like, buy the products you want, and you'll be happy. And you might be thinking, hey man, you didn't mention NECA with their Godzilla and Pacific Rim lines, or the Gamera and Godzilla kaiju from Kyoto's Revoltech line, and I specifically did not include them because they are no longer releasing those products, with no sign that they ever will again in the future. For the price point, accessories, articulation, openness to feedback, and durability of materials, Titanic Creations takes the cake. When it comes to figure packaging, most of the time I just recycle the boxes unless it's something expensive, part of the whole figure display, or just really cool. The boxes that Titanic Creations put out for their original kaiju are some of my favorite ever. Clear plastic boxes with colored cityscapes. With their recent licensed properties, they've continued using the clear boxes and made the cityscapes specific to each character's film. This box for Yongary might be the largest package of any figure that I'm actually keeping. At 14 3/4 of an inch tall, just under 18 inches wide, and 5 inches deep, I have no idea where I'm going to display this. I've already had to rearrange some of my room just for a Titanic Creations specific section. Also, I decided to do more research on the tanks from the film, and it looks like they are M47 patent tanks. Still not sure about the jets though, so someone please let me know. But this all has me curious about licenses for vehicles and landmarks, what they might produce in the future, and what obstacles may stand in their way. And it's no secret that Godzilla is the absolute powerhouse when it comes to kaiju fandoms, and films like Gorgo and Yongary are cult classics at best. But the amazing things are that Titanic Creations has given these smaller fandoms, a niche within a niche, something that they would never get, proven that there is still money to be made with the little guys, and helped to revitalize these films in the process. Like, I hadn't watched Gorgo since I was a kid until the Titanic Creations figure came out. I probably would have never seen Pulgasari, and now gave Yongary a fair shake as an adult. And it's not just them. Hop Toys put out their giant claw figure from their Misfits line, which got me to rewatch the film, and then that led to a viewing of Q the Winged Serpent. So now I wonder what the Titanic Creations figures have done for DVD sales and streaming of these films. Now, this set doesn't quite conclude their Korean kaiju collection, say that 5 times fast, as there are other colorways of Pulgasari on the way, plus full color versions of their chibi figures. Ever since they put out their Gorgo figure, Titanic Creations has been inundated with requests from fans for different kaiju and other movie monsters. For me, as far as Korean creatures go, I want the mutant from The Host. Whether they do a creature or not all depends on interest, cost, and most importantly, securing the rights. But for now, while they may or may not have some other properties in the works, I know they're hard at work on their articulated Titanicus figure, updating their flagship kaiju with the engineering of their other modern figures. I know most of us are more familiar with the classic movie monsters, but I definitely recommend checking out Titanic Creations' original kaiju. Whether you're grabbing a Graphixus, perusing the possible Pulgasari, or yearning for a Yongary, whatever is available by the time you're watching this video is on their website. You can click my link in the description below, which is a win-win because I get a little commission, which is going to end up right back in Titanic Creations' pockets, as I just love their stuff. You can also find them at some conventions like G-Fest and D-Con, and save yourself some shipping. In the meantime, I hope that the Titanic Creations crew gets a chance to breathe before their next big project. And I hope that you can find the articulated figures you're looking for, no matter the company. Thanks for watching, liking, subscribing, commenting, all those things you do that help out the channel, and remember to always drink responsibly.